Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show. I'm Mark Wallace, your host and facilitator. Good to be here with you on intellectualradio.com. And we'll be with you tonight from 7 o'clock until 9. Actually, we're running a little bit late coming up, but we are going to be talking about a few things tonight. Obviously, we've talked about the election. We'll be talking about the anniversary of the attack on Israel by Hamas. And coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking with the former Alderman of the 2nd Ward of the city of Chicago, Bob Fioretti, who is the Republican candidate for the Cook County Assessor's Office. Before we get into that, and then we're going to be doing a special on suicides. And you all, if you haven't, you saw my post that I put forth on this past weekend that a family member of ours died by suicide. Obviously we are all very, very shook and struck by this. And there are families all over that are having to deal with this. We are now a family that has to deal with it and has to wrap our arms around the mother, my nephew, who is the father, and the rest of our family. But I wanted to encourage us that we have to pay more attention to each other. We have to love each other and wrap our arms around each other a little bit more, and we have to listen to each other that are experiencing difficult moments in our lives. And there are some times that the challenges of life seem very overwhelming. And while it may not be for some, it is for others. Suicide is not something that any of us are going to be quite familiar with, and it's not going to be anything that any of us will really understand. We can learn about the challenges that people have when they are having moments or thoughts of suicide. I have worked with organizations, and we're going to be working with another organization that we're going to be doing a special about this, because it is something that I think we do need to talk about. We do need to learn about. We need to face these very dark experiences that are happening in our world, that are happening in the lives of other people, and certainly they touch the lives now of our family. And but we want to take a horrific, tragic occurrence and learn from it, and we'll get through it. Certainly we'll have to wrap our arms around our family and try to be a beacon to someone else who may be experiencing these traumatic thoughts and emotions, and having thoughts of taking their life. And we want to be a vessel to hopefully prevent and share with someone that there is help. There is help that you can get. There is help. There are tools. There is support. Families, you can get help. You can get help with trying to understand, and certainly how to deal with someone who is having emotional trauma, who are having crises in their lives. It is not to be judgmental. We're not being judgmental. It is not because a person is a bad person. We can find all kinds of reasons to try um, to explain it. And that does not bode well in terms of trying to help each other or trying to help somebody else. But what we have to do is get the tools that we need in order for us to be a vessel of help to someone else. So I'm going to be doing a special later this week with some experts from crisis intervention organizations, and we're going to be having a special, and we're going to provide and we're going to learn, we're going to provide tools. They will provide tools for us to share with others to and to recognize the signs. I'm not sure that we really paid attention to the signs, or we recognize them, obviously. Whatever the case may be, our family member didn't see another way out. They didn't see another way out. And so we, as family, we're going to wrap our arms around each other, and we are going to get through this tragic, devastating thing that has happened, and we'll get through it. And so certainly we want to be a vessel, one to each other, through this moment. And I want to say to my family, who some may be watching and listening, know that I love you. Love on each other. Don't spend any time doing any self-criticizing or criticizing someone else, or any of that sort of thing. It doesn't prove to be fruitful or helpful. The only thing that we can do now is to love on each other, to get the tools that we need to get so that we can heal, and we can learn, and we can move forward to help other members of our family who may be in crisis, or it could even be you that's in crisis. But we want to wrap our arms around each other and to allow for whoever it is that is being challenged to get the help and the support from each other, and to get the tools that we need to get the help so that you could go on. In particular, in the Black community, we have to be much more open to therapy. We have to be much more open to help. Because we get help, because we go to therapy, it does not make us some sort of freak or bad people. There are plenty of people who have crises and who are having challenges that are getting help, and they have gone on to have very productive lives because they got the treatment, they got the help, and they got the support that they need. And so we need to equip ourselves as family with those tools so that we can be support for each other, and hopefully that we can be an example to somebody else so that they, if they are having crisis, can reach out and get help. So we're going to be doing that at some point later this week. All right. So, and if there's anybody else, if you are having any type of emotional discomfort or challenge, call 988, dial 988, which is the crisis lifeline if you need to help. I'll put it in the chat. It's the emergency, not necessarily emergency, but it is the crisis lifeline that you can dial to get help. Dial 988. They've instituted this new national number recently, and so there you go. All right. So today marks the anniversary of the October 7th, 1 year ago. That has been elevated to a regional conflict where Hamas went into Israel and took 251 hostages. And there was 150 hostages remain, and thousands of Palestinians and Israeli people have lost their lives through this conflict, and hopefully that this conflict could come to an end, and we will be in prayer that it will come to an end, and much sooner than later than anybody would expect for it to happen. Benjamin Netanyahu, the current prime minister, whom the people over in Israel don't like. 75% of the people in Israel want for him to be gone. And there are people, the majority of the people over in Israel believe that Benjamin Netanyahu was so focused on his own political outcome and trying to revamp the justice system so that he could escape possible prosecution there. And as a result, people in Israel believe that he had taken his eye off of security, as he should have, that this could have been avoided. And that there are those who believe that he is exacerbating this situation, and with a complete over response or overreaction, a response to this. Now, of course, with the Biden-Harris administration in the United States, Israel is an ally of the United States. And as I said, I was on the Ben Joravsky show last Friday. I know that people want to think that this is somehow something that the president can take out a pen and just erase this. But I am no expert on foreign affairs, but I'm sure that it is much more involved and much more complicated than that. And there are other things that have to be considered. And so I will defer to those who have much more information than any of us, that to figure out a way to bring this conflict to an end, and to diminish or certainly stop the destruction of lives that is happening with the people in Palestine, and that the Palestinian people will be able to have safety and security and that the people in Israel will have safety and security. But that conflict is raging forward. So it has become a regional conflict. And again, we hope that it will come to an end. All right, coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, I'm going to be talking to Bob Fioretti, who will be joining me. He is running for Cook County State's Attorney. We're going to be talking with him. He is running as a Republican. He has become a Republican, so he is a Republican candidate in the Cook County State's Attorney's race. And we are also reaching out to the Democratic candidate who is running, and we're going to invite and give them the opportunity to come on. And next week, next week, we're going to have Congressman Danny Davis is going to be stopping by with us to talk about the election and giving us some more information. He is the congressman of the, I believe he's in the 1st Congressional District. I believe it is. So, but he will be stopping by to join us on next week. All right, some good news in terms on the political front. The jobs report last week came out. 254,000 jobs were added in the month of September, bringing the total of 16 million jobs added under the presidency in American history. Under the Biden-Harris administration, unemployment ticked down to 4.1%. The president certainly is having a great week. The president averted the longshoremen strike, and with some fierce negotiation and putting pressure on the owners to do more. They have added trillions of dollars in revenue with record profits. And so the president, had a couple of masterful calls and did not interfere with the collective bargaining and called on the owners to do more and was able to avert that longshoreman strike that lasted a little less than 24 hours. Then we have this crazy stuff going on with Derek Anderson, the GOP candidate for Congress, who is a bachelor in Virginia, getting caught posing with his friend's wife and children as though they were his family. I'm not sure what that was all about. And then Rick Scott, who is a senator from the state of Florida, touting the Heritage Foundation, the lead authors of the Project 2025 that wants to do away with FEMA and NOAA. Imagine that we don't have federal intervention and federal help when we have these natural disasters that are happening, like Hurricane Helene, which is one of the most widespread hurricanes ever recorded. And then we have now another hurricane that is developing out in the Gulf that is Hurricane Milton. And that is right now has been recorded now as a Category 5, which they're saying that will probably or certainly drop off to less. But because of climate change and because of the warming of the ocean, what happens is the hurricane storms get across the ocean and they pick up serious thrust, and hopefully by the time that they hit landfall, will diminish. Like Helene got up to be a Category 4, and then Helene was downgraded to a tropical storm. However, it was a very widespread hurricane, very widespread storm that has caused a lot of damage. I think there are more than 200 recorded deaths and still people who are missing in that. And then we have people who are trying to politicize what's going on. So now Imagine if we didn't have FEMA. FEMA funds 75% of relief in the local areas in the states where there are natural disasters, and the local and state governments pick up the other 25%. Project 2025 wants the federal government to only pay 25%, and then the local governments pick up the other 75%. That is an impossible task. It's an impossible task is where you have these people who are just trying to blow up the government. They have no clue, have no understanding, nor do they care about making sure that government actually works. They want to get rid of 50,000 people who are actually experts who work in these areas, the civil servant workers who are career civil servant workers, and they have expertise in all of these areas of government. They're not political appointees. They're civil servant workers who work beyond any political affiliation, but they're civil servant workers serving you and I and serving the country. Project 2025 wants to do away with 50,000 of them and turn them into political appointees that will essentially turn the United States into an autocracy. But just imagine if we did not have FEMA, we didn't have NOAA, which imagine why we ended up losing as many lives as we lost during the pandemic. We could have averted many thousands of those lives if there was a different response. The first thing is that the Trump administration got rid of, completely shut it down and got rid of the disease and infection response for pandemics and the kinds of things that we were hit by. So they were not prepared for it whatsoever. And here again, you have it on steroids, where you have people who are now talking about, in a plan, you can just go to page 664, and it talks about how they want to do away with NOAA, how they want to do away with FEMA, and how they want to make sure that the local governments fund the majority of their disaster relief. That's why we have a federal government. That's why we have a government, because when we have big problems, that we have a government that can respond to these natural disasters. So I think that it's very clear as to where we are and who it is that we are supporting. I had the conversation with Ben Dorofsky that this is now so far beyond your political ideology or my political ideology. This is about the character of a person that you want to have in place to make good, sound decisions when we are facing tragic events like potential conflicts in regions, natural disasters like we see happening with Hurricane Helene, and like we see that is approaching in Hurricane Milton, and other things that we don't know what will happen in the coming years. But we need to make sure that there is a person who is at the helm that is governing and that will allow for our democratic process and our democratic governance that has been worked and built and working to improve for the past 250 years, that we are not putting someone in place who just doesn't care about it, who doesn't care about that at all, who does not care about resolving problems, doesn't care about solving problems at all. So it's far beyond political persuasion. Now I'm going to get into some other hardline facts as to why, if you can't get beyond your political persuasion, if you can't get beyond it, and if you are a person who accepts facts, we're going to get into that tonight. and certainly dispel some of what you have people who would like to put disinformation out. Uh, they want to put disinformation out, and so therefore we have to deal with the facts. We have to deal with those facts. So I let's see, Bob Fioretti is asking me where did we send it, but let me just uh, see um, where that is, and we want to make sure that he has the information that he needs so that he can get into the program. We're going to send it to him once again. So if you all just hang on real tight, we'll get this information out. Uh, so okay, there we go. Yeah. Okay. All right. So back with you now. So we're gonna deal with some hardline facts, because I like to deal with facts. I am a person who likes to deal with facts. You know, the old saying is that you certainly have a right to your opinion, but you have no right to your own set of facts, which are not facts. There's one set of facts that exist in any situation, and then we can have a conversation about philosophy of how to get to certain places, right? And so we certainly, I'm getting some notices here. There we go. Um, and I will give you facts. If you're a person who are really interested in um, the country going forward and the country dealing with real issues and creating opportunities so that we can deal with local issues in our various communities, whether you be here in Chicago, whether you be in Miami, whether you be in Liberty City, whether you be in Detroit, whether you be in Pennsylvania, whether you be in Pittsburgh, any of the communities that you're in where we live, we have issues that need to be dealt with. And we have issues that need to be resolved. Excuse me, socially, economically, uh, that we have to deal with. Of course, you heard me at the very outset of the program talking about mental health crises. Those exist in our communities. While we in the Black community, there is a lower rate of suicides. There has been a tick up in suicide rates within the Black community. We still are not as high as other ethnic groups, but of course, our numbers over these years have ticked up. So we're going to be talking about that on the special that we do on crisis intervention and suicides later on this week. What other thing? Oh, Donald Trump. As much as I would not like to have to talk about this person, but here are some, and I know that you all do. For those of you who think that supporting Donald Trump is, well, it is your right, but you think that it is a good thing. It is not a good thing. It is not a good thing. This represents the choice that one is choosing You're not choosing a person based on policy because they didn't have any sound policies. They didn't have any good policy. All they did was rode on the policies that had been worked on for the previous 8 years and that were grown through the 2 terms of the Obama administration. Those economic policies that he inherited that were strong, that he completely eviscerated by the one policy that he passed or that he signed on to of giving the wealthiest 2%ers a 2 trillion, which turned into a $6 trillion tax cut, that the average American is saddled with 2,400, I think it's $2,400 of that debt every year. So you didn't get a tax break. You subsidize the taxes for some very wealthy people. And that is happening, mind you, not just on a federal level, but we're talking about this particular guy. I'm going to get into local subsidization of taxes. I'm going to get into that. And those taxes are being subsidized by somebody who happens to be a Democrat. Yes, I call it out right where it is, but I want to stay right here with Donald Trump. So Trump is going around saying that FEMA is taking money that is supposed to be used for disaster relief and using it for migrants. It is simply not true. It's a flat out lie. It is patently false. Fact is, Biden didn't take FEMA money, relief money, to use for migrants. Trump did that in 2019. The administration, his administration, in the middle of a hurricane, told Congress that he was taking $271 million from DHS programs, including $155 million from disaster relief to pay for immigration detention space. This is what Trump did in the middle of a hurricane. So the idea that people would buy into this because of whether or not, whatever your thoughts are about migrants and misinformation that is going on to mislead people that somehow migrants are causing a problem for the social economic livelihood of Black Americans. There is no evidence of that. There is no evidence of that at all. None. And don't allow for yourself to get sucked into that misinformation and disinformation pool. Because I assure you, if Donald Trump becomes the president of the United States, Black communities are not going to be communities that he's going to be concerned about. Not in any positive way. Case in point, when the pandemic hit, Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, was placed in a position to head up the task force for COVID-19. On April the 7th of 2020, when the report came out that Black people were dying at a higher rate than any other ethnic group as of that date, Donald Trump shut down Jared Kushner and his team and went to the podium the very next day touting that it is time for us to open the country because Black people were dying at a much faster and higher rate than any other ethnic group. That's what happened. So for those who think that Donald Trump is going to be a response. And for those people who are frustrated and angry and think that the alternative is the answer, the alternative is not the answer. The answer is, one, dealing with people that we can best get things done with. This is not to say that you have a holy alliance. I don't have a holy alliance with anybody in political office, but I will vote and I will support people to go to political office that I believe that I can challenge to get things addressed in our communities for our communities. I support those people who I believe that are doing and working towards governance and putting policies in place that are going to be, one, pro the interest of our communities and pro the interest of the overall communities. So I support people who are in public office that are doing that, and I support candidates who commit to doing that. And we should do that collectively. The more that we do it cooperatively and collectively, the more that we will be able to get done, and the more we will be able to see positive outcomes across the spectrum. Some other interesting information or misinformation that's going around for people who don't take the time to do a little bit of research. There have been people going around talking about Kamala Harris was locking up black men. Well, when she was a prosecutor, she was the AG. Let's look at the facts of what Kamala Harris actually did as the DA and as the AG. Kamala Harris supported and started the Back on Track program, which was a restorative justice program for 18 to 24-year-olds who had first-time nonviolent, low-level drug offenses. And it was a program that instead of jailing or charging them with a record, they got sent to boot camps for job readiness training, parental training. They earned their GED, and they were connected with employers for careers, and even worked to get their credit repaired. So once people graduated from this program, she threw the charges out as though they never existed. And as the DA of San Francisco, she made social services help parents with chronically students that were deficient and students that were truant. They had a social program there. She got the kids back into school and kept them from incarceration or from going to the grave. She created a reentry initiatives for those who were in jail so that they wouldn't go back, which the Donald Trump administration, when he was president, he signed the bipartisan bill that was the First Step program, and they were supposed to be spending $175 million a year on to help those ex-offenders so that they would not recidivate. What do? They starve the program for the next 3 years. They only allocated $14 million in that program. This is what the Trump administration did. She also prosecuted more than 1,200 domestic abusers, prosecuted child molesters, rapists, and violent criminals Also transnational gangs. She got more than $20 billion back from the banks for California for the big bank mortgage foreclosure crisis. She created the Civil Rights Division, the San Francisco DA's office. When she first got into office, she then uh, she then um, changes. I'm sorry. She threw the charges out for many of the activists and the protesters who got arrested back then for the who was protesting the big banks, and they were arrested by the previous um, district attorney. So, and by the way, the incarceration rate in California for marijuana fell each year while she was the attorney general. So those are just some facts about some of the great things that Kamala Harris did when she was attorney general and when she was a district attorney. She was not in the business of locking up parents, and she was not in the business of locking up black men. Now, she prosecuted those people who were violent criminals, that some of them happened to be black, uh, and prosecuted those people who were doing serious harm. But those who were on low level offenses, she put in place programs to help them get back on track. For the first time that was done in the history there. So Kamala Harris has a great record. So please just do a little research, just a little research to get the facts. All of what I just gave you, it just takes a little bit of research to go and get. Not on TikTok, not on Facebook, on some of these other, outlets that you go to, or even these I, AI uh, false falsities that people go to. Do a little real research so that you can go and actually get real information, real corroborated information and the facts about what actually is and is not happening. All right. So um, the other thing is this past Thursday at our 10 by 10 to win meeting, we had a online forum with members of the 10th district, the candidates of the 10th district who was with us. We had everybody except for one, and I guess there was a little bit of mix up. Che Ryan Fest Smith was supposed to be with us, and for whatever reason, he did not get on, but we had the other candidates on. We had Rosita Chitanda, who is the write-in candidate. We had Karen Norrington Reeves, who was a candidate. We had Robert Jones, Pastor Robert Jones, or Minister Robert Jones. We had Adam Parrott Schaefer, who was with us. And there was one other person that I believe is running in the 10th district that was not with us. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's Andre Smith. And so Andre and Che was not with us. So we had a great meeting. The leader of our education committee, which is now former retired Principal Gerald Morrow, who has great ability, moderated and facilitated that for us. We had a great 3-hour back and forth with the candidates, and the candidates had ample opportunity to respond to the questions, as well as to provide context of what their vision would be. And following that meeting, as our bylaws called for, we took a vote, and the 10 by 10 to win is an independent black voting block. And what we do is we look for candidates, and obviously we are building, and people who are running for office, we hear from them, and then as a body, we take a vote on who it is that we will support and endorse for any particular office. So for the 10th district, the body voted, and the majority vote was Karen Norrington Reeves and Adam Parrott Schaefer. And so, you know that each district has an A and a B um, um, division. And so, whichever one of those candidates would actually win, we are going to be calling on the mayor because the mayor gets an appointment in each one of the districts. You know, so we're going to be calling on the mayor to appoint that person that was won the majority vote by the committee. And so we're going to be putting out an official statement about the two candidates that the committee voted to support. And coming up this week, we're going to be inviting the candidates from the 9th district. These are the districts that largely cover the Black community. So the 9th district largely covers the west side of Chicago. So we're going to be inviting them. We think that it is a much better idea to have just the candidates from each district rather than having all of the candidates mixed in from all of the districts in order to really have a substantive conversation where people can really ask questions and they can hear from the candidates so that they can make a real substantive informed decision about who it is that they want to support. I actually think that they should have done for each of the districts, they should have had the candidates in each of the districts doing multiple small group meetings to where people all over this, because these are some huge districts, very large districts. So they should have been doing multiple, I think, meet and greets or meetings where they have just the candidates in that district moving around, talking to people in the different direction districts. So I I think that this would be a better way for to identify, certainly to identify the, or certainly get a better understanding of the candidates and to see where the candidates' positions are. And so that you, as a voter and a resident of that particular district, that you can talk directly to the candidates. I went to a forum, they had all of the different districts there, and they only had, the candidates had a minute, I believe it was, or a minute and a half to respond to questions and that sort of thing. And so it did not bode well for a real discussion to really kind of illuminate the candidates and for community residents to get a full, better understanding of who they are and what they represent. So we really appreciated having just the candidates from that district. And so we're going to have the candidates from the 9th district that's going to be with us, hopefully on this next Thursday. They have a forum tomorrow night, which we will be at that forum at Chicago State. And then we will be speaking with each of the candidates there, inviting them to come on this Thursday night so that we could speak with them. And of course, it is very interesting that all of this money from these outside sources that's being thrown into this race. I think the idea of privatizing our public commons, privatizing public schools, is a very, 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 very dangerous thing to do. All right, so there are two groups. This was from an article of the Chicago Sun-Times that was done back in early September that did a very widespread reporting on two groups that support school choice in charter schools and are very critical of the Chicago Teachers Union, have amassed more than $3.6 million from prominent business leaders, including a few billionaires looking to shape the city's first ever school board elections. And while the groups haven't yet reported any spending on school board races, their coffers represent by far the biggest expected infusion of money supported and opposing candidates. It's more than 6 times that of all 32 candidates combined. And they have brought the election campaigns in 20 times more than the teachers union's political action committee reported holding at the end of June. Now, there was even reports of the founder of and chairman of Netflix, who gave a whopping $986,000. Now, you would ask the question, why would you have all of this outside influence into a Chicago public school elected school board race? And the simple answer is that they want to privatize public schools. They privatize the janitors. Now, if you just think back, when I was in school, we knew the janitors. We knew them by name, and they knew us. And they were very, very proud people of their buildings. Their buildings were so clean, our schools were so clean, you could eat off of the floor. Some of the things that we are hearing about, rats and roaches and the filthiness of public schools, we never experienced that. And I am a product of public schools. I went to a lab school for 2 years, fourth, fifth, and sixth, 3 years. I'm sorry, fourth, fifth, and sixth, 3 years. I went to a lab school of my 12 years, but I am a product of public schools. I am a supporter of public schools. I believe that our public schools should not be privatized with charter schools, school choice. Every school in every neighborhood school should be a school of choice. We should have school choice, and those schools that we are funding through taxpayer dollars have all of the resources, and they get to hand pick their own private school of their students that we pay for. And the rest of our students get substandard resources and get bused or have to go across town to go to a different school. That should not be. That's why it's called public education and public schools, so that we can properly provide an excellent learning environment so that our students can be prepared to move on to thrive. That's what public education is supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be some private enterprise so that very wealthy people can make profit off of and not care about educating our students, educating our children, and providing them with the resources that they need so that they can thrive. Every neighborhood school should be the exact same and offer the exact same high quality of learning. Now, do we need to have some different structures because people learn differently and people may require a different approach or different educational needs? I absolutely agree with that, but that should be in one system. That should be in one system. It should not be privatized. And our public school system should not be a business. Once you start privatizing the public commons, you are going to lose the quality of the intent of what its purpose is. When I was a kid in school, went to elementary school, went to junior high, and went to senior high. In every one of my schools, I remember my instructors. Why? Because they actually cared. Now, teachers were, in my opinion, are never paid enough money, and we need to deal with that. I think that teachers should be paid well, and they should never have to worry about whether or not they can meet and have a good standard of life. And teachers should not have to be subsidizing, providing resources that they need to provide education. So if we were properly taking care of our public schools, which Republicans want to just privatize our public schools, but if we are properly taking care of our schools, we probably wouldn't have any need for unions. We wouldn't have any need for them if we were properly taking care of our public commons, of public education, making sure that our teachers are well paid, well compensated, well cared for. The same way that we take care of our firemen, the same way that we take care of our police, we need to make sure that we take care of our teachers. And this ideology of people who have made socialism and socialist as a boogeyman word, it is not a boogeyman word because we all benefit from socialism. You know, the roads that you drive on, we collect taxes to build our roads that all of us get to enjoy. It is a shared enjoyment. Our police department, we collect taxes to pay for our police officers. That's called socialism. We collect taxes to pay for our fire department. So the ideology and the idea of people trying to scare you with the word socialist, we have socialism going in this country. And it actually works when it is instituted the way that it's supposed to be instituted. You can't privatize the roads. We certainly don't want our police privatized, and we don't want our fire departments privatized, but we certainly want to have those available to us when we need them. So socialism is not a dirty word. It's not an ugly word. Understand what it is before you allow for somebody to suck you into this camp that this is a destructive word to our existence. It is not. All right. Joining me now is the Republican candidate for the Cook County State's Attorney's race. He's the former alderman of the 2nd Ward. He's an attorney and someone that I have worked with down through the years and has assisted us in getting counsel for one of the biggest class action lawsuits that I believe that has taken place in the city of Chicago, where we sued the city of Chicago against its enforcement of red light cameras. Bob Fioretti is my guest, as we know. Bob, welcome to the program.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. How you doing?
I'm battling it out every day, so doing
All right.
fine.
Okay, yes. Good. Thank you for joining us. All right, so you are running as a Republican candidate for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, and so tell us, what's your vision for the State's Attorney's Office?
Well, I think it's somewhat simplistic about what I'm going to say. I want to represent victims. I want to restore the rule of law. And I want to break this cycle that we see of crime and corruption here in this city and county. And I think what my plans for that office and my experience, which is much greater than my opponent, in terms of how to build cooperation and collaboration, outshines what she can do. So, in my experience and temperament and integrity, as I said, I've tried cases not just in Cook County and all the courthouses here, but all the collar counties and throughout the state, through many of the states around us, from Wisconsin, excuse me, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, that I have the experience in both state and federal courts. My cases have changed policies, procedures of government institutions, from some things as all the adoption laws in the country. On the Baby Tamia case, we changed them here in Illinois, which affected everything across this country. And at the same time, procedurally, I have changed how I made sure that the department and wrote the specific and then general order about chokeholds, that they should be prohibited, how suspects are taken into custody and transported, how detectives take notes. I mean, those are some of the ones that affect the city of Chicago directly. And so, as I said, my experience is much broader, but I was as you said, a former alderman for 8 years under both Daley and Rahm. And I was able to pass probably a lot more, if not a lot more ordinances than any alderman in my 8 years, including police reform and how we reformed the police board and what they should be doing, how they have to handle evidence. So I'm proud of my record as both a private attorney and as a elected official. But I must say also, I've been appointed a special assistant state's attorney in Cook County, in DuPage, Will, and I've been appointed a special attorney general throughout the state on numerous cases, and both by Democrats and Republicans holding office. And I think that experience shows that they have confidence in me and my judgment and how we approach cases, especially when it affects the people of the state or of the various counties. So that's where I stand today. And when I'm elected state's attorney, I plan on bringing people together, working in our communities, and and when I say working to build, I should say I also created Operation Safe Passage, and that's how we're going to create and drop down crime by having pastors and parents and police all working together with a state's attorney that's actively involved in our communities.
Well, recently I was with Father Flager, and I worked with Father Flager, or I should say, walk with Father Flager every summer when he does his Friday night peace walks through the community, providing resources. The final walk was done a couple of weeks ago, and they put out the statistics showing that overall violent crimes are going down in Chicago, and in that particular district, homicides were reduced by some 83%. Some real improvements in those areas. Obviously, guns are a problem. Guns are a problem in terms of illegal guns being flooded into our city and our state from other states that have weaker gun laws. Now, one of the problems that I have every time that I see a political race, state's attorney's race, and people talking about, the state's attorney is going to reduce crime and that sort of thing, which really is a little bit misleading, because a state's attorney prosecute cases that are brought forth with evidence, and to determine. It has not bode well, and obviously we need to prosecute violent offenders. We need to make sure that you're going after those people who are wreaking havoc on our communities. But the idea that somehow the state's attorney is going to bring this level of uh, peace is a bit misleading. Is a bit misleading. Can you, you know, for once, speak to the realization of exactly what the state's attorney can do? The state's attorney is not, going to go out and make people feel like, or reduce crime in the county. The state's attorney's job is to prosecute people based on cases that are brought forth that are evidence on which they can prove and convict people and hopefully take dangerous people um, off of the streets.
Well, I think what I said is how to collaborate and bring down crime. And you do that by being out there and helping the communities, working with the communities. As you said, you were in the march when Father Flager, maybe it was last Saturday, had the gun turn in. I was there at that turn in that he was having. And I think by we have a lot of distrust, first of all, in government institutions, secondly, the police department, and communities that are worried about stepping forward when they know who the criminal is and who's committing the crimes and who has the guns. I can go into churches all the time, and when I talk about, we all know who has the who has the guns and who's committing the crimes. I see about 20% or more of the heads going up and down because they do know, but people are afraid to come forward, and we have to reestablish trust, which is very difficult. But you do that by being in the community, you having your representatives in the community, and uh, uh, as you said, yeah, the main job is to prosecute. But I serve on the board, the advisory board for the Children's Advocacy Center, where we deal with abused kids. And we have therapists, we have police, we have state's attorneys, all working together for those abused kids. Why is that important? Because it shows what we can do collaboratively and what we need to do to bring down crime and help victims of crime. That becomes the biggest problem. And of course, as you just said, the murders are down. Maybe I'm going to tell you why I say maybe. Things like the cell phone. You pick up a cell phone, you're able to make a quicker call. Um, and that has saved lives. You get ambulances there when we call 911 and we have a shooting victim on the street. Nick Spizzato and I advocated and we created trauma ambulances. So when they arrive on the scene, the individual is as if they're in a trauma room being treated. I advocated bringing especially at the University of Chicago, a trauma center there when the vote was for the Obama Center. You know, uh, those are the things that make a difference in terms of the numbers. Granted, you started off saying about the flood of guns because the other states have laxer laws. I'm not sure about that. I haven't analyzed the laws, but I do know Chicago is a global center for human trafficking, and we sit there, and everybody sits there and is worried when we have 20,000, 25,000 acts of prostitution a day, which undermines what we do in this city, undermines the rule of law. Guns are coming in, are flooded through the dark web. Guns, drugs, and human trafficking. And they get paid by Bitcoin. Those are the things that we have to look at on how to solve and resolve in the because people need to have safe streets. strong communities, thriving businesses. And you can't tell me anything else, that it doesn't happen unless we have elected officials that are willing to stand up for the crime in their neighborhoods.
Well, one of the,
And that being said, it's your turn, Mark.
yeah, one of my biggest advocacy for reducing crime is to making sure that we have strong economic communities that have an access, that the young men have access to jobs. Here in Chicago, we have 40% of black men between the ages of 18 to 25 that are out of school and out of work, to their white male counterpart at 7%. That doesn't bode for having, real low rates of crime. When we don't have comprehensive uh, objectives to deal with those types of disparities that have persisted, where we have black women who are 16% of the population of the city of Chicago, yet they are 30% victims of all crimes reported going back 25 years, and there is silence about that. There is really no comprehensive, objective response to that. What do you say to that? I don't know how the state's
I'll tell
attorney,
you what I
regardless of
say
who
to
they
that.
are, that is going to change that.
I say that's, you know what? Where's the elected officials? I brought 8,000 jobs to my ward. I hired from the community. I was elected in a 72% African American job. And I did not fight for the minimum wage. I want a living wage. That is what. And yes, I went out to some of the marches for the fight for 15. I was there. But I want people to have a living wage. I ran for alderman because down my block is Whitney Young, but Crane was just short, a few blocks away, a 10-minute walk between them. You know what? Until we have jobs for people, and we have to train them, and we bring them into the trades. We hired over at Rush 500 jobs from the community. And actually, we looked at other wards too that we brought in, some of the South Side wards, further west, not just brought in additional workers over there. And we brought them into an 18-week training session at Dawson there on 39th in Michigan, and they were trained there for their jobs. I've had people that, in fact, I had a call just maybe 3 weeks ago from somebody who was a former drug dealer, small-time petty nonsense, that was sitting on my porch, and he said, "Alderman, I need a job. Can you help me?" We got him a job almost 10, 12 years ago, and
I think we've lost your audio.
track, I think one time came into my office. I was having a job fair in the following week. They hired either 32 or 38 people to work at the Amtrak station from the ward. We have to be aggressive and make sure that we stand up for good wages for all of our people. And I'm going to step away from the camera. You can ask the question. I got to get a
Okay.
bottle of water.
All right.
Okay?
All right. Right. Well, Bob Fioretti is going to have to get a water. He's having a little dehydration, but we're talking with Bob Fioretti, who is the Republican candidate for the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. He's running against the Democratic candidate and former Judge Eileen O'Neill Burke, who is someone we are going to reach out to them and invite them to come onto the program as well. Bob, let me just say this to you. We can talk about, and I know that people like to get it, and I really like to have things kind of holistically. What kinds of programs will you, if you are state's attorney, what kind of programs will you institute in terms of dealing with nonviolent, low-level drug arrests or offenders, which in large proportion and disproportion are younger African American men? What kind of programs will you, as state's attorney, if you're elected as state's attorney, will you implement um, to address that?
Well, I think some of the things that you're talking about, diversionary courts um, that we have. In fact, I was invited by the presiding judge of the drug court to come to the graduation on May 17th. Uh, you get into the program, uh, you're busted on the street for whatever you're doing. We get you in the program, since, as you just said, nonviolent offender. Uh, we we put you through a training program. We get you off, and we try to help you find a job. All 17 or 18 people. It was May 17th, and I think it was 18 people. The court system worked through and we helped find jobs for these individuals. Um, uh, I maybe 3 4 days later was walking in a building downtown, and here was one of the guys that saw me that because I was at the graduation, and he came up to me and we took some pictures. He wanted some pictures, and we took some pictures together. Those are the kind of programs that have been instituted a long time ago. I mean, we have a mental health court, we have a women's court, a drug court, a gun court. Those are the things that we have to get people into, so they can find jobs, get assimilate, and hopefully break the whole cycle of crime that they've faced, or whatever the case has been. So those are, and we also have a second chance program in our court system on more, I'll say, financial crimes, or that you don't commit a crime in 2 years or so, everything's wiped off your record. And going back to the drug court, even if you've had other offenses in your background, uh, Judge Burns looks at your record and expunges it. So those are what we need to be looking at, and what needs to be done.
Well,
And
early.
I encourage those. We
Okay.
don't need, in a sense, new programs. I'm always open to having new programs that can break this cycle, but and what it is, to be quite frank, I am not sure that system is should be broken.
You started out early when we in the discussion talking about making sure that we can have people to um, uh, bring back the rule of law. We have a serious corrupt problem of corruption in just about every facet of our government, um, and I don't recall the state's attorneys or the AG for that matter, but we're talking about the state's attorney's office. What can the state's attorney do about attacking local criminal corruption within our governments?
Well, uh, yes, Mark, you open up. I bet you if we open up either one of the mainstream media papers today, well, obviously there was stuff about the Madigan trial starting tomorrow, but the and every day we pick up a paper and there's something about somebody on the state, local, county, the inspector general's office that we had that investigated Alderman, and how they were a very good crew of individuals that looked at and took tips, analyzed things, and I think that's the type of unit to bolster our public integrity unit.
But
And
that needs to be an independent. If you're going to have the inspector general, because the city council
No,
brought
I
in
didn't
an
say it would
inspector
be an
general.
inspector general, right? But it would be independent on how they would investigate. They led to some, I know, not just. I know they led to some federal indictments and convictions of some of the either aldermen or their staff, and
Well,
how
certainly
they
Joe
operated.
Ferguson. Joe Ferguson was the inspector general for the city council, and the city council
No, no, no,
basically.
no, no, no. He was not.
What,
Not when I was
what was
there.
his
We
name?
had no inspector general. We instituted one. Joe Ferguson had no authority over the city council. It took us a lot of
Well,
back-breaking aspects.
who was the inspector general or the there was an inspector general for the city council that they actually starved his budget. What was his name?
That was. Why can't I think of it right now? I should know it
Was it
right off the top.
Fahad or something like that?
Yeah, it was.
Fasad?
Yes.
Yeah, well, this is a person that they just basically had there, and then when he started doing his job, raising questions about things that were happening within the city council decided to, uh,
Well, that would
you
have been
know,
my vote.
yeah.
I agree. But you see, that's what we need. Something like
So
that.
what can the state's attorney do? Can you put forth your own independent investigator to investigate political crimes?
I lost you what you said.
Yeah.
You went silent.
So, as state's attorney, um, are you allowed to put in place your own special unit to investigate um, corruption in political office of local political
We
offices?
have a unit that for investigators. Yes, and how we judge that and what we need to do is something to be set up. But yes, I plan on. I mean, the state's attorney doesn't. Not only does it have the ability, but it has the duty to go after public corruption, and I'm planning on doing that.
Okay, I mean, I think that again, uh, you know, state's attorney's office, that the office is a judicial office, and while it is a political office because we vote for the state's attorney, I think that in a lot of the conversation that I hear, and a lot of the back and forth that I hear from the state's attorney's office or candidates, is a lot of times about who's going to be tougher on one layer of problems that we have, and we really don't get into that every person who is violating the law is not on the streets. Some of them are in our boardrooms, and some of them are in our political
Absolutely, Mark.
offices,
Absolutely.
and we need to deal with that at all. If we're talking about bringing back the rule of law, we need to bring back the rule of law at every level,
Sure.
especially in our areas of
Yeah.
government.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can't disagree.
All right, there is somebody who asked a question here, and I'm going to read off some of the questions in the chat. Um, they were asking, how can you be a reformer after defending the disgraced Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard? Did you defend
I
the
didn't.
mayor?
I never defended her. I was asked to represent her in uh, actually the whole process of mayoral recall. And two wrongs don't make a right. I knew what the court action was, and when I looked at it, it was such. I, you know, if uh, and right now we all know she's under federal investigation, and I hope the federal government, or who's ever investigating her, deals with her in the appropriate manner. If I was, and if nobody was doing it, given the people of Dalton are, they may be divided or whatever, how they're looking at that, but it was a case that, can you recall somebody after the start of their term to put in the referenda to recall that individual? you can't. The problem is you can't change the rules in the middle of the game. Now, I know there's supposedly, one thing about some of these recalls, I I'd rather see the whole structure, the whole. If you're going to recall one, can you recall another? Why is it just a mayor that's going to be recalled under some of these processes? Why not an alderman here, an alderman there? Why can't they all be recalled? I know Pat Quinn started a whole because he didn't like Lori Lightfoot. I know there's somebody out there through the FOP trying to, and I think they gave some money to recall Brendan Johnson. Well, you know what? Under the law, it's too late. I mean, if it was put into effect before he or she got into office, you can recall, but not in the middle of the game. And we otherwise people would maybe look at the office in a different way. Am I opposed to what's happening and everything out there? Yes.
So to be clear, you represented her. You represented her on this question about recall, which we don't have a recall policy in place.
Right, and it was set to do a recall in the middle of the term.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
But we don't have a recall policy in place anyway. Is that correct?
Anyway or anywhere, right?
Right.
But again, it was a very two wrongs do not make a right. Whether that she was wrong and the referendum was wrong on how it was written.
Right.
Simple as that. The
No,
people.
I get it.
I'm going to say if the people
Yeah.
want to do something right now, they should get that recall petition out there and filed to get on the ballot now, and to make it easy.
Yeah. Okay. Let me switch to.
And by the way, as you say this, it's appalling that the township supervisor is making $224,000 a year. Absolutely appalling, and I think people have to realize that too. And I don't hear anything out of the newspapers saying anything about that.
Well, I certainly have my opinion about what the whole idea of having the Thornton Township supervisor, or certainly the makeup of the Thornton Township. I don't even understand what the purpose of. You have village managers, or you have village presidents or mayors of all the different villages. What's with the whole Thornton Township, or whatever that is?
They have no police authority. They don't have any fire authority, from what I understand. That may not be completely accurate, but I agree. I think all these townships ought to be extinguished. I mean, there's no need for them. So, but I think Thornton Township employs 50 people. What they do, I don't know, and what their departments are, I don't know.
All right, so let me ask you this about Eileen Burke, who is the candidate, the Democratic candidate for the Cook County State's Attorney. There was a question that somebody asked: is that what do you mean by saying that Judge Burke does not have the temperament for the office?
I've heard some statements that have been made by her. And I am seeking verification on them from different lawyers that have been either in the courtroom or in the appellate court. And running an office that size, you're going to face a lot of issues. And you have to have the right temperament to go even keel. Look at the Constitution of the country, our state. Look at the statutes. Look at the facts, weigh the case law before you start going on and indicting people. And that's what I mean. So,
well, the state's attorney's office, obviously, again, is another part of our judicial system. And in many regards, there are people who in the past have tried to and have politicized the office. How would you, as state's attorney, not allow for the state's attorney's office to be politicized?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to take calls from politically influenced people. Uh, you know, People know I was the most independent alderman in my 8 years. People know that I am not subject to influences except for the people. And I'm going to make sure that I am out there. I'm listening to the people too. And as we build coalitions to bring down crime, which is the number one issue. So I somewhat disagree that you, and I don't have the figures in front of me, that you said violent crime is coming down. Well, not really. The numbers are up. The numbers are up when you compare them. Maybe to last year there was a dip, but not pre pandemic. The numbers are higher. So things, you know, I I had called out the superintendent when I was an alderman on his numbers that they had. We had a hearing on it. It was covered by the Tribune. The Tribune wrote how we came up with it, and they looked at how the how should I say um, numbers are dealt with. People also don't report crimes here in this city. I mean, they know they have to wait. Things are happening, and people wait. And so why call the department? I know some people that have called over numerous times, and they're waiting for police even a week ago, and they've called.
What is your position on ShotSpotter?
I'm in favor of it. We've already
Why?
had 5 now since it was turned off. I hope the mayor comes up with a reasonable RFP that can attract something that'll be better. But in the meantime, to me, keeping it through the Democratic convention when it should have been turned off a long time ago, and then all of a sudden, what did that say? It said to me and a lot of the people out there that the people don't count. So I am in favor of it. I want to find, if there are alternatives, let's find them, Mr. Mayor, and get them on the books, get them in the budget, and go for it.
I know that there are strong opinions about ShotSpotter on both sides, and I continue to ask the question. I continue to ask the question: what, based on the analysis and the reporting that I have read, that the problem with ShotSpotter is not the technology. The problem with ShotSpotter is
Excuse
the
me.
enforcement within the police department, because somebody has to respond to the alerts that they get. They get an alert. The alert goes into the dispatch. The dispatch then sends it out to a car or multiple cars, and those cars have to respond. What has been happening, according to analysis, that more than a third, uh, better than a third of those dispatched, even in areas that they consider to be hotspot areas, are not being responded to. So how is it effective if they're not being responded to?
Well, maybe it's because of lack of personnel. There's the wait period on some things and multiple gunshots in the same district at the same time. Are I don't know. I haven't read those studies. I like to look at them, but I hope the city of Chicago and the police department, like I said, finds some alternative if they're not going to use ShotSpot. Find some technology is moving so rapidly,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to be careful on our privacy rights, what we do, uh, and the accuracy. So I hope the city and the police department find the accurate thing. Right now, you asked me a simple question. I said I'm in favor of it. We can already count the bodies that have been not accounted for. that were shot or killed, and it took one woman 2 days before where they found her body in an alley that was covered by the shot spotter. It does not mean that she could have lived. Don't get me wrong, I didn't,
Mhm.
but you know what? I think we need to find something that narrows it down right away. And
Well,
there's probably some technology out there.
well, I think that the question that I have is, if we're using ShotSpotter and we're using this technology, one, what is its purpose, and what are the results? Those are the
Okay,
only thing. Those are the only two questions that matter. What's its
those are
purpose,
for
and
the
what are
police
the
department.
results?
Those are for the police department.
Yeah, so that's where I believe it. Again, we have photo enforcement of red light cameras and speed cameras. You've worked with me on that for years. This is a policy that generates a lot of money that goes into the pockets of we don't know who.
You and I
Um,
agree. Absolutely.
and that system is a system that is disproportionately unfair to certain communities, and it's a system that needs to uh, be dealt with. Here we have now, because people know, and I'm talking about the people who drive recklessly, and we have an influx of that, who know that police officers are not doing traffic enforcement. We don't have traffic enforcement by police officers anymore because we have our government, our local government, that have deferred traffic enforcement to cameras, which we now know that based on analysis that we have a higher degree of crashes, we have more cameras and a higher degree of crashes, and we still have this technology around under the disguise of safety that brings in, $140 million or whatever the number is now a year that we actually get no real benefit from. How can you impact that? Because
Uh,
we have
that is a municipal issue, and if I was the mayor, I would look again at the contract, and you know my position on it,
yeah,
but right now, it is not my overriding concern
right.
in terms of what we do, but but I've always said that if the city, which was being sued, changed positions and became a plaintiff in the original lawsuit, the results may have been different. And I believe the judge in the case asked if the city wanted to, and they said, well, we'll come back and look at it. And whoever the principals were that were guiding that lawsuit said no. And we're stuck here in this city with the red light cameras.
And okay, my final question: you this past weekend were
Yeah.
endorsed by Reverend Jackson. You were endorsed by
I
Reverend.
missed the first part of your question. I missed the first part.
You were endorsed by Reverend Jackson. Reverend Jackson broke party lines and endorsed you as the Republican candidate for Cook County State's Attorney's Office. What's your thoughts?
When you receive an endorsement of that magnitude, you don't want to do something. First of all, it's such an honor to have that endorsement. Um, Marianne Ahern put out a tweet that said I'd been endorsed by him for county board president, which is not true. I had appeared on some voter rights uh, issue of trying to get students out to vote. And then there was another time with Kwame Raoul, he and I talking about get out the vote. And it is truly an honor to be endorsed by somebody who's led the civil rights movement since the death of Martin Luther King. I know that as he was finding his way, people may disagree with him, but he's always been a fighter out there and fighting for civil rights and making sure that people have equal access to education, jobs, the voting booth. I am humbled by that endorsement.
Well, listen, I look at, I'm a registered Democrat. I'm going to be a Democrat. Doesn't make me a loyalist to the Democratic Party, but it is the party that I believe that we can best get things done with, and we have to continue to challenge to fight against those things that are not good or injustice, regardless of what party is. But I believe that we have to get to a point to where, regardless of whatever our political philosophy is or political party is, that we have to be able to sit down as people of decency and to address the issues and bring resolve to the issues. And so, which is one of the reasons. Or I shouldn't say one of the reasons, it's one of the things that I like about the presidential election, that I see Republicans and Democrats working together for the best interest of our democratic process in the country, in supporting the campaign of the Harris-Walz ticket. I think that that's certainly emblematic of where we need to be as a country, even post an election, to see Democrats and Republicans wanting to do what is right for the best interest of the country and for the people of the country, because that is the country.
And so be it. As Reverend Jackson said, he has to ask the people to split the tickets. Vote for Harris, vote for Fioretti. Vote for Jackson, vote for Fioretti. Vote for Davis, vote for Fioretti. Vote for Kelly, vote for Fioretti. He was urging people to do that at the press conference that was had on Saturday, and I think people will respect, listen, and see the differences, because my candidacy is about making sure that we have safe streets, strong communities, thriving businesses, and I'm going to make sure that we do that. And if people are in neighborhoods where they don't feel safe, I'll be out there to see what we need to do. If the alderman's role is very limited in what they can do. But when I created Operation Safe Passage, that wasn't in the books. When I got money for all of my schools, my 40-some schools, it wasn't in the books. When I fought against the closing of all the school closures, I was the only alderman that did that. I had to take on the administration to make sure the non-for-profits, especially for the areas that we were taking care of homeless people, had water and they were paid for. That wasn't in the books, but I had to fight for that in the city council. There's certain things that you use, and I am going to be, as the state's attorney, to keep fighting for jobs for all of our communities, to reinvest in our communities, and to see how we can bring the violence level down so we have these safe streets, strong communities, and thriving businesses where businesses want to open. I closed down bad liquor stores. I closed the food desert. Those are things that were not in the book on being an alderman for the city of Chicago.
Kim Fox has worked very hard to get people who had been wrongly convicted to have those convictions reversed. I think it's over 200. What will you do? Because, of course, we know that in the aftermath of John Burge and the torture, that many black men had been tortured into confessing to crimes that they did not commit. We've had person after person who had served 20, 30 years of a life in prison based on crimes that were committed against them by people who were supposed to be protecting them. What will you do as state's attorney to continue that process?
Well, I think, as opposed to my opponent who railroaded an 11-year-old on a false coerced confession, I have represented those that have been wrongfully convicted, especially on a coerced confession, and it bothers me of our system that here in Cook County that we have this issue, and not to just look at the individual, but what caused that kind of trigger mechanism that allowed so many individuals to give a false confession, give a coerced confession when they were innocent and proven otherwise. Okay? I mean, the people of this city, especially, and the county, do not need to keep paying millions and millions of dollars that could be used to be reinvested in our communities instead. So I am going to continue. I'm going to keep the unit there, but at the same time, I'm going to work with the police department to have a cold case unit to look at the cases and see together what we need to do.
All right, Bob.
It is a serious undertaking.
Sure.
And
sure. I mean, it's a major job, and no person who takes that job or who is elected to that job is anybody expecting that they're going to be 100% correct. Everybody's going to make some missteps, but the question becomes: is the heart and mind in the right place to do the right thing? To fight for justice and justice for all. And look, I've worked with you for many years, and we have agreed, we've disagreed, but we've been able to work together and I know that your heart and your mind is to do what is right and what is just, regardless of what the political affiliation would. So we're talking with Bob Fioretti. Thank you very much for coming on to the program, and all of the best to you. I'll give you the last word to give you closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thanks for letting me be on the show today. But I do agree. My view of the criminal justice system too, not how we're handling it, but as individuals go through the process, that states attorneys need to understand what the presumption of innocence is, and we need good, fair, ethical, hard-charging states attorneys pitted against good, fair, ethical, creative public defenders or private attorneys representing the defendant. But we need to put them in front of judges that are really neutral, that understand the system, that I'll put it in some terms, that can call balls and strikes. And when necessary, we get those individuals in front of a panel of their peers to decide guilt and innocence, all of which are, in a sense, difficult jobs for for an undertaking. And I think when people understand our justice system, it'll be better for everybody. Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you very much, Bob Fioretti, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so
Thank you.
much. All right, folks, that's Bob Fioretti, who is the Republican candidate for Cook County State's Attorney, my friend and somebody who I've worked with, again, over the years. And I believe that if he is fortunate enough to become the Cook County State's Attorney, that he will work and will work um, to make that office more fair. And then just listen, I support Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox, and I think that she is doing a great job there, and certainly doing things in terms of working towards justice that none of her predecessors have done. She's been largely criticized for it, and to a large degree because she made, in my judgment, a terrible, terrible mistake in terms of the handling of the whole Jesse Smollett situation. But overall, she's done a great job. I'm a great fan, and I hope to get a chance to have her on the program to talk about her tenure as state's attorney before she leaves office. She's got a few months left, a couple of months, I should say, left in office, and we're going to try to get her on the program so that you can hear from her, and we can find out what she thought that she did good, and those things that she was not able to accomplish as Cook County State's Attorney. But I'm a great fan of the State's Attorney, and I think that she has done a great job there. Anybody who is taking the leadership of such a huge county, I think it's one of the second largest state's attorneys in the country. And so anybody to take on that, you're not going to get it right 100% of the time. And in fact, nowhere in government is that going to happen. It's just unrealistic. However, I think that it is important to have people who are really interested in justice and want to work hard to get it right. And I know that it can be easy for people to get into wanting to hear somebody talk tough, wanting to hear somebody, have the iron fist. We're going to go after the criminals. We're going to put people in prison. That's not what justice is. There are some people that do not belong in society. There are some people who are very bad people out there. But there are people who have problems. And I think that in our criminal justice system, that we have to have attorneys, public defenders, we have to have prosecutors, state's attorneys, and we have to have judges who are all looking for justice. After all, that is the oath that attorneys take. They swear an oath to seek justice. You don't swear an oath to get a victory at all costs. You swear an oath to seek justice. And that is what we need at every layer, in our Attorney General's office, in our state's attorney's office, and certainly in our governmental office, is to seek equity and to seek justice. All right, listen, that's going to do it for me for this week's edition of The People Show. I want to just take these last few moments to certainly reiterate, one, to my family, because some of them are watching and listening, to let you know that I love you to the moon, and that we have to wrap our arms around each other during this time. God is going to be there for us. He's going to comfort us in this time of hurt, and certainly give us peace through this uh, period of transition. But I certainly want to encourage people, if you are experiencing emotional and mental challenges or crisis to where you think that whatever it is that you are dealing with is more than you can bear, please reach out to someone in your family or call 988, which is the crisis lifeline number. Call. There are tools and there's support and people standing by waiting to support you in whatever the the problem or whatever the challenge is that you are having. Dial 988 to our crisis lifeline. We're going to be having a special later on this week where we're going to have some experts on who's going to come on and help us through these processes and through these challenges to talk to us about this as we experience and will never be familiar and certainly never really understand it, but we certainly can understand how we can play a role in preventing someone from making a bad decision to end their life when they can get the support. All right, that's going to do it for us for this week's editions of the People Show on intellectualradio.com, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until the next time, look for that special. It's going to be coming out later this week. You all have a great night.